In the past 4 or 5 years, inflation has got the better of both the people and the central bank. And at one level, it is not odd because many central banks have sort of found themselves behind the curve. But how do you sort of see India's situation and who's to blame, as it were, for India's inflation? Is it that central bank RBI was behind the curve? Did it not do enough? Or how do you sort of see it?
So, I think without sort of pointing fingers, laying the blame, as you say, I think as you pointed out, across the world, we've had inflationary conditions, partly post-pandemic recovery, and partly, the wars and their effects. But I think if you look at India's inflation performance, to some extent, the biggest factor has been food, especially in recent times. And, that's something that obviously the central bank has to keep in mind, which is why we target headline consumer price inflation, but is less directly within its control. That doesn't mean it can ignore it, because if food inflation stays high for a long enough period, what will happen is it will get embedded in inflationary expectations and make it harder for the central bank to keep inflation under control. But I think if you look at the overall performance of the central bank over the last so many years since inflation targeting was brought in, it's been quite creditable relative to inflation in the past. We haven't had sustained episodes of double-digit inflation, for example. And, one reflection of that is the currency has remained relatively stable. So I think all in all, our new regime has performed reasonably creditably, and the central bank has performed reasonably in it. So the issue of letting blame, in a difficult situation, they have managed.